A lotus is a flower rooted in the mud that rises through and above to become a beautiful bloom. This is a podcast sharing mine and others' stories of how we've done the same, choosing to rise above our circumstances to bloom. I'm your host, Amber. Let's get started. So this is Kristin, who I actually found through Instagram. I was just like late night scrolling and you popped up on my feed, and I think it was like your first video maybe that is what popped up on my feed. And when I went to your profile, you had a few more reels posted, but it was your first video that popped up, and I just really loved your message about healing through trauma and what your experience was. And I thought that your message was super beautiful. And so I just like instantly messaged you and was like, hey, would you be willing to share your story on my podcast? And you're so excited. I'm so excited that you responded.
Yeah, of course. I was excited that you wanted to do it and you wanted to focus on the healing aspect, because I know that's not always popular. So
yeah. Well, and one thing too, I think what drew me to your profile as well and your message is that I can relate to where you have a spouse that's in the system, and I grew up with parents in the system. My real dad as well as my stepdad, and I have two siblings who have been in and out of prison, federal and state. And so it's something that I grew up with, something that I carried a lot of shame around and didn't talk to a lot of people and felt like not a lot of people could relate to. And even now as an adult, now that I've accepted it and done a lot of healing around it, I still know that people can't quite understand what that's like. And so I just thought it was really, really important. I haven't come across too many people who are sharing this perspective. And we kind of messaged back and forth about this, about how there's so much stigma. And I think it's really important to kind of heal that and understand what that's like to have a family member or a loved one be in the system.
absolutely.
So
that's why I have my name too, like the inmate wife, because I wanted to remove that stigma, because we're always living in shame. And I was like, no, I'm going to own it and use it. So
yeah, I love that. And I wish that I could just like post little snippets of your Instagram, because there are so many things. I love that I think it's really brave of you to want to tell your story and a little bit of that. And then I also think that I feel like this is repetitious, but I just feel like it's so important that people understand, like, while there may be an opinion of what that person did, our loved one did, we're humans too. And it's kind of sad that we have to suffer through that. And it's hard too, because you have like conflicting emotions sometimes. Like with my dad, it was like, yeah, he deserved to be in prison. Like he did some pretty awful things. And I still love and care about him. And I still want to have a relationship with him. And what's ironic is when he was in prison was when he was the best father to me.
Yeah,
and so yeah, so it's like, it's wild how it's sad that that's what it takes. And it's I don't know, there's just so much to it. There's so many conflicting emotions. And so maybe we can go into that a little bit, but yeah, if you just want to share a little bit of, well, first, what made you decide to start sharing your story?
So it is because I feel called to do it. My husband and I were kind of talking about how basically he has guys in there who have families and they really struggle with connecting with their kids. And I meet the wives or the girlfriends, because sometimes they're not married, and I see the children, and they're dealing with the same sort of challenge. Is how do you maintain a family when you're completely separated geographically, right? And how do you maintain a connection with your husband or spouse? And the challenge is, a lot of times people almost want to wait till the closer to when they're going to get out to do it, instead of through the whole period. Like, I can't tell you how many people told my husband, they're like, she's not going to wait for you. I mean, everybody, literally, when he first got sentenced, no one said I would stay. And he's like, you don't know my wife. And so it's a small club, I feel like, sometimes, of people, especially when they have a longer sentence. Like my husband got 26 years. But that is why, like, basically, we've been kind of behind the scenes helping people, so to speak. And in order to use our situation, which was horrific, I want to help others. Like, I don't want to go through this and not help others because it was so lonely. And I can tell you, I had only about three people who said, "You're doing the right thing." And they
Mm.
were literally people that weren't really super in my life, but came out of the woodwork and they were like, "You're doing the right thing." And it's like a lot of people don't have support who are in our situation. And so
Mhm.
I just want to advocate for them. And like, I'm a Christian. So one of the big things is having a voice for people who feel voiceless. And I 100% felt that way. I feel like my children felt that way. And so I'm just trying to be that. And that's why I'm kind of putting it out there. Like, it's not popular, I understand, but sometimes our purpose isn't always going to be popular.
Yeah, exactly. And what's important is that you're still pushing through because that is your purpose. That
Mm-hmm.
it's like despite popular opinion. I remember someone telling me like always do the right thing despite popular opinion or
Mm-hmm.
common opinion. Um, because if it's your purpose, then it, you just have to keep doing it.
Yeah.
Do you think, I think what's really great in what you're doing as well is that, and I know you have kids and I don't know how old your kids are, but I know that for me, there was, again, a lot of shame around my dad being in prison. And the only way I knew about that shame was because the people taking care of me felt shame around it.
Yeah.
And so then it's like you pick that up of like, oh, then
Mm-hmm.
this must be shameful. And I carried that into adulthood. And I remember we would lie about where my dad was. Like we said, he got a job in Florida. And so whenever we would be gone for an extended amount of time, like for a long weekend to go visit him, it was, oh, I just went down to Florida to go see my dad. When really it was like, I went down to Florence to go see my dad, you know? And
My husband was at Florence too.
oh,
Oh, that's
really?
interesting.
They
Yes.
knew each other.
We have lots of stories about Florence.
Small
Okay.
world.
Yeah.
But yeah, so there was just a lot of shame, and I picked that up from the adults
Mm-hmm.
around me. And so I think what's really great about what you're doing is it's kind of showing your kids that maybe there isn't, or even how to hold those emotions
Right.
of um and how to navigate that. Have you been able to talk to them much about
Yeah.
that?
So I call it leading by example. Like, I
Mhm.
actually use that term all the time. And that's how I feel like I can best help the younger generation who is feeling that shame is if I work with the women and the moms. Like, kids pick up on our emotions, as you
Mhm.
mentioned. And so if I'm like, literally, I will have so much anxiety sometimes when I'm going to go to court, or sorry, not court, but go visit my husband for the first time in a new facility. And I noticed my kids would get super anxious. And I'd be like, oh my gosh, they're picking up on how I'm doing, how I'm feeling. And so I learned I have to deal with myself so I don't pass it to them. And so even now, like, I'm very cognizant of that when I'm around them is fake it till you make it anyways. And I very much like we have spoken truth to our kids. Like, we don't want them to lie, but what we do teach them is discernment because you can't share your story with everybody.
Right.
No, not everybody's going to be accepting. And so you kind of need to know who's safe to speak to. And I can tell you with our daughter, I mean, my kids don't have any friends who have a parent incarcerated. So they feel very isolated
Mm.
and they don't feel like a lot of kids understand how they feel. And that's one of the things that I try to teach them is what you are going through, you're going to be able to help other kids. There
Mhm.
is not going to be one kid that understand, like, there's going to be kids that don't have anybody else either. And you're going to find them and you're going to say, hey, I know what it feels like to have my dad there or my mom there or whatnot. And so I'm trying to use it as this is our calling, so to speak, is to help those who feel very unseen and what people would call almost like deplorables. Like, we don't our spouses don't get a vote, right? So
Yeah.
they're not paid attention to, and kids don't get a vote. So it's like, it's really lies on the mom or the adult who's in the world to help formulate like a healthy environment for those kids to help them know, like, you don't need to live in this. Like you did not do anything. And so that's the biggest message that I do give to my children is I'm like, this is what your father did. It
Hmm.
is not who he is. Because I also try to separate the action from the individual. Because like
That's so
my faith
important.
belief, yeah, is that there is like that's why I'm not trying to sound like a nerd, but I love the Bible because it's filled with stories of imperfect people. And it's like when you're actually really imperfect
Hmm.
and you go through it, you're like, I can relate to this. I understand what it feels like. I never understood how the Bible was so relatable, I'll tell you, until almost after this story. Because I think of like Noah when he had to go build the ark, and I'm like, you look like a crazy man, right? There's no rain. And
Yeah.
I'm like, that's like me. Everybody thinks I'm freaking crazy. But I'm really trying to honor the Lord with what we got. So with our kids, we really do teach them just the boundaries, going back to that of being who is the right individuals that you can share this with, make sure they're safe. And what I typically do is like I would talk to the parents in advance and I'd say,
Hmm.
hey, this would be really good for my child to speak to your child so that they know. And I can just tell you, like my daughter and my husband have this little symbol that they do together, which means like I love you. It's like kind of a code word for them.
Yeah.
And he made a necklace for her. I'll try to get it sometime and I'll show it to you. But he made a necklace for her and she opened it and she just started to bawl. Like
Mm.
it meant so much to her to have that connection. And like she didn't feel that she could share it with people, right? And
Mm.
so when she finally had a friend who knew where her dad was and she could be like, hey, my dad wrote me and this is what he gave me. It was just, I saw this weight lifted off her.
Hmm.
And I always say this, like our secrets make us sick. And so you have to have wisdom, but like we didn't do anything. And that's what I teach them. Like you do not own what your father did.
Hmm.
That is what he did and he is paying the price, but we don't own any of that. And so I have to live that as well, right? Because I reap a lot of the consequences of his decision. And so his poor choices. And so anyways, that's what I try to help. Does if that
I
makes sense.
no, I love that. I think that that's what's cool about that is that you're teaching them. It's like a gratitude lesson in learning, like seeing the bigger picture of like, I know this is hard and this is difficult, but you're going to be the one who helps some, like imagine some other kid going through this and how it would feel to have somebody to connect to. You're going to get to be that for somebody else. Like what a gift.
Mm-hmm.
And also just teaching them emotional intelligence of understanding connections and understanding their emotions around it. I think that that is so cool. I mean in just day-to-day life, I don't know that there are a lot of parents who are teaching their kids these things of how to look at even just a plain Jane situation and say, hey, look at whatever you think is tough that day. And if there's another kid who's going through something tough, maybe you can be the one to help them through it since you've been through it before. And this is just like on such a larger scale. I don't know. I keep the things that you keep saying, I keep thinking of like now as an adult, I have people to relate to. But if I, as a kid, I grew up, I mean, for a while I grew up with my parents were drug addicts and we had a pretty crazy life. But then I was raised by my grandmas, for a short time, one grandma, and then for my teenagers, my other grandma. And the one grandma that I lived with, my dad's mom, it was in an academy district, like a military district. And so lots of military kids, little bit upper class, name brand clothes. And so the idea of ever telling them that I once lived in my car was you just don't talk about that, much less that my dad is in prison. And then especially I remember we would go to church. And I don't know if your kids ever had this, but the angel tree, were they
Yes,
around the
they
angel
do it.
tree for
That's
Christmas?
amazing. It was an
I
amazing experience.
I have to tell you, like that, even as a kid, was comforting in that there are people out there who care about me and want to make sure that I'm not missing out on this. But also, it was kind of embarrassing sometimes to be like, at our church, I was on that tree.
Yeah,
And it was like, so these kids that I went to church with knew that all
yeah.
of these kids' names were kids who had a parent in prison or in the system. And so I was just hoping like that our church was big enough that someone who got my name wasn't somebody that I knew. And then eventually they changed it to where we were at a,
Yeah.
they made sure our name was at a different church. But there was just so much beauty in that. And I don't know, it's just interesting as a kid, like to navigate all of these emotions. And I wish that I had had an adult who was had that loving guidance of like, this isn't you. His
Hmm.
decisions aren't you. And so I think
Yeah.
that's so great that you're teaching your children that too.
Yeah.
Um,
My kids remember angels, right? They literally remember everything that my husband gave them from that. And it's like, I will just tell you, almost get choked up, thinking about it. But it's like, I remember going the first time and it was like super humbling. Like, I have a professional career, but I'm like, I lost everything. Like, I was in a bad spot financially. And I remember our Christmas tree was like that big this year. It was like a little one from Walmart, and I couldn't afford to do any. Like, I was in such a bad spot, and I remember it was the first time. So this testimony is about like how it impacted me too, is like they gave me a meal like to take home to fix. And I was like so used to the hate. Like after, like I'm a feeler, so I can feel people's like emotions a lot of times. It's just how I am wired.
mhm,
And it was the first time I felt like someone cared about me
mhm.
after going through what I went through, which is when I just was like, I mean, just people wanted me dead, right? And
Yeah.
hated me. And so it was super touching to me. And then seeing my kids, I can't wait till we get to bless other kids, like doing that
Mhm.
kind of stuff too. It's
Well,
amazing.
and especially where I can imagine with, because you did a few posts about the media frenzy, and I can
Hmm.
imagine with that of being feeling like if I was in that situation, I would just start to question of like, I can't trust anybody. Like every people have
Yes.
like hate me or don't like despise me for this and I didn't even do anything and the media is out to get any type of scoop that they can get. So and I remember you talking about how you were just felt like you were trapped in your house kind of because every
Hmm.
they would try to look through all of the windows and stuff. And so I can imagine having someone do that would just be like, okay, there are people out there who I can trust and who actually care.
Hmm. It was a healing experience for me, definitely. And the non-judgmental, like that's what I mean. I mean, the world was judging me and didn't know me, didn't know, like I'd lived my whole life like serving this country. Like I love this country. And so it was just so devastating to
Mm.
be like, whoa, now I'm on the other side
Yeah, what a
where
flip.
yeah, of lie. Yeah, of justice. And it was just so sad to me as it like profession, if that makes sense. It was like so sad because I loved my country, and and then it was just the weirdest situation to be in. Never thought in my wildest nightmare this would have ever happened to us.
Yeah. How I want to rewind just a little bit because I can imagine like the way that this came about, it wasn't like for me, it's like, okay, my dad was getting into trouble, like we kind of saw it coming type of a thing.
Hmm.
We saw it building up and he's like a
Yeah.
repeat offender. So it's just like, oh, he's in again. Whereas with you, it was just like this roller
Wham bam.
coaster. Here we go. Yeah.
Yeah.
So how did you get from my world is upside down, what the hell is going on, to this is my purpose, I'm going to help people? Like, what helped you get through that to get to where you are now?
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, I have amazing parents. Like they love the Lord, and they believe in the covenant of marriage. And sorry, I'm getting all choked up.
Oh, you're good.
Yeah. But it was just heartbreaking because I had my whole world just change overnight where I was like, my husband is being investigated by the FBI. What? Like, I love my country, and he had served our country. Like, I mean, we were going to get married on the 4th of July. Like, we both love our country. It's just
Yeah.
the weirdest thing to be like, and now you're being investigated by this country. And it made me just, I mean, I was just scared of everything. Like, I was scared at work, I was scared at home, like, because I felt like I was being monitored everywhere. And if I hadn't had people like my parents who loved me and who stood by me, and I mean, like, I'll have to talk about that another time, but like, it, I had just two people in my life saying, you can do this.
Mm.
And that was it. Like, all my friends left. All like nobody, like once it came out in the media, they were gone. Like people I'd known from childhood. And it was so heartbreaking because I was just like, don't you know me?
Hmm.
Don't you know, like, you know, some of those things they're saying aren't true. Like everybody knows that. So why do you believe everything's true?
Hmm.
So it was just so lonely. And I've never had to dig so deep. Like I said, if I hadn't had parents that really taught me the value of like family and faith, I don't know if I would have got through it because I actually have now an understanding. Like, I've never done drugs a day in my life, like, not into that.
Yeah.
But I understand why people go through something so bad and they're like, I don't know how to cope. That's my only option is to get a break from this. And so I chose faith, which sometimes felt like I was going to lose my mind. Like, but I chose faith and I chose to really, like, I really believed the Bible and the words that it said. And so I would read Psalm 91 over me. I had it like posted in my bathroom. I had Bible verses like up all the time. And I mean, I'd have to listen to Christian music and that would say, like, you know, greater, whatever it would be. But it's like I had to pump myself up because nobody was going to do it.
Yeah.
And that's where it's hard. And I want to be that for other people because I know what it feels like when nobody wants to touch you. Like you are like,
A
I'm trying to think of
leper.
the right word. Yeah, a leper. And they don't want to have anything to do with you because they don't want to get pulled in. And I got it. It was the loneliest place in the world, but it's allowed me to see people that other people don't see. So well then like something comes on the news, I'm literally like, that's who I'm praying for. They don't have anybody. Like I know it. And so it's weird because I feel like I am part of a club that I never ever wanted to be part of. But and I didn't necessarily want this to be my mission in life, but we don't always pick what it is, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm just trying to make the most out of this horrible experience and to do my best to help people. And I don't know a better way. And I've said this before. What my husband did was horrific. And I don't know a better way to repair or do try to do good when he did something so bad. Like
Mm.
that's all I'm trying to. We are only trying to the rest of our life, as long as we have breath, make make people better and help people not do anything close to what he did, you know. So
I love that. And that reminds me, have you heard of the illustration of the coffee bean?
uh-uh.
Oh my gosh, it's so good. So I actually saw this guy speak and he had served some time. I don't know how long. I want to say it was like 6 or 7 years or something like that. And his story was basically he was like this star football player in high school or college. He had an injury and was prescribed medication, pain medication, and fell into addiction, which led to heroin, and then led into like theft and all the things that usually come along with addiction. And so he ended up serving some time. And while he was in there, he was very much in like the victim mindset of
Mhm.
why am I here? This is dumb, blah, blah, blah. What are they trying to do? Um, and someone told him, and now he's this public speaker. His name's Damon West. Anyways, so someone told him this illustration, and it was basically they told him be the coffee bean. Don't be the egg and don't be the noodle because an egg, when it gets into boiling water, it's hardened by its environment. And
Mhm.
a noodle is softened by its environment. But a coffee bean doesn't change. In fact, it just changes its environment. So it's influencing the people around him and turning it into something else, but it stays exactly the same. When you pull that coffee bean out, it looks exactly the same.
Mhm.
And so that's what whoever it was in prison that told him that, he's like, don't let prison harden you. Don't let it soften you.
Mhm.
You have to be the one that changes the environment. Don't let the environment change you. And
Mhm.
I love that illustration. And when I was listening to some of your posts this morning, that's just the illustration that kept popping into my head because you kept mentioning of like I'm just trying to do good. Like I'm trying to do basically like the best I can with this situation.
Mhm.
And it just kept reminding me of that coffee bean of how you and your husband are just trying to not let it harden or soften you, but change the environment around you.
Yeah, and I think you brought up a really good point of something that, I mean, I haven't always forgiven people and I've had to work through it. And so even like 6 months ago, there was stuff that happened that I really had to work on forgiving is you can be bitter and let this take you to the grave. And as you said, I could have a victim mindset, like, look what you did to me, I'm a whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't serve people. And we're called to be victors, not victims.
Mm-hmm.
And so that is my mentality too. But I haven't always had that. And I really had to also, I had friends who gave me that hard truth of, you're not a victim in this. You're a victim. Like that were telling me, they were like, yes, things bad happen to you, but you're not living there. And so that helped me too, is having people who gave me those hard truths because it's like, we everybody kind of wants to feel sorry. Like you want people to feel sorry for you at times, right?
Yeah.
And I've been on the side where like nobody feels sorry for me. You know what I mean?
You're like, come on,
So
just one.
yeah, I know, just one. But it's kind of like I thought you brought up a really good point is that with the whole hardening because prison is terrible. Like there's a lot of people that do things to you intentionally and they want to make you uncomfortable. They want you to respond. They want you to like do something back, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and even for people who are visiting, it could be that way. But it's like so important that we forgive right away. Like that's for me is like I have to forgive you right away. Like I can't let something take root because it is going to change you and turn you into bitterness.
Mm-hmm.
Even these people that you don't realize. And so I think that's a big problem that they do have sometimes in prison, as you mentioned. So that's actually really wise advice.
Well, and I love the point that you said too of I think in one of your reels about forgiveness is that the forgiveness is for yourself. It's not for anybody
Hmm.
else. It's not
Yep.
so that you like me forgiving you. I'm not forgiving you so that you feel better about yourself. I'm forgiving you because I need to be at peace with myself in this situation
Hmm.
because it's like what's that saying? Holding a grudge is like drinking poison and waiting for the other person to die. And I feel
Yep.
like that's the same thing as it's like if I'm holding on to this for so long, you could go on with your life and not give 2 cents about it. But
Yeah.
for me, what is it doing to me internally? So that forgiveness
Right.
is for me so that I can move past it and get more out of my life. And again, like not staying in that victim mindset.
Hmm.
Um, I was I I want to say it was like maybe 3 years ago, I heard on this podcast about being in a victim mindset and how it's not same thing, not hurting anybody but yourself. And um, now I forget the way that they explained it, but it was in such a way that it changed my opinion of I didn't realize in how many ways I was in that victim mindset until I heard this. And it was like, it just really shifted my perspective on how I'm looking at things of like the universe is working for me, not against me. Like things are working in my favor. And if something difficult happens, can I find the beauty in it? Can I
Hmm.
find like how I can grow from this or like how you were teaching your kids like how I can help somebody else through this so they don't have to suffer the way that I did. And it's just like that forgiveness is finding the beauty in the
Hmm.
situation.
And knowing there's a path too,
Mhm.
like that, because I can tell you, I mean, it got really dark for me. When my husband was first arrested, they said I mean, it was 105 years, and
Holy
it was for
cow.
obstruction of justice and lying to a federal investigator. That's but it was 105 years that they piled together.
Yeah.
And I mean, I had just had a baby 5 days before. So I'm like still
Oh
post
my
just having
gosh.
a baby. You know, because you have kids. So it's like lots going on with your body, with your hormones. And then, you know, guns blazing come and grab him and stuff. Understand why they did it. But anyways, it was just at that point so overwhelming. And I remember that's where I like really flipped a switch. And I actually wrote a letter to the judge and mentioned this to him. I was never so suicidal. That was like, I was very suicidal at that point
Mm,
because I was just like, I'm done. I don't know how to do this. Like, I'm done. Like, I
yeah.
can't handle this. Like, it was so overwhelming. And I remember where I was at my house and I was like just bawling to the Lord. And I was like, get me through this. I will dedicate my life to you. Like, I just like didn't know a way out. And that's where I was telling you is like, I can understand why people choose to do bad things like
Mhm.
taking a drug to get them out of the environment they're in because it's sometimes life is so hard you don't know another way. But
Mhm.
that's what I want to try to do is give hope to people in that like drugs are only going to numb it,
Mhm.
right? And I
Mhm.
understand that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to numb their pain sometimes, but like God wants to heal it.
Mhm.
And so, or that's my faith belief, right? And so that's what I want to try to help people with is like, let's not numb our pain. Let's heal it. And it's hard. And I remember talking to one of my counselors and they were like, inner healing is one of the hardest things you're ever going to do. And it really is, but it's so rewarding. And then you just want to help other people heal because you're like, you don't need to live like this. You
Yeah.
can be better. Like you don't have to have this. Yeah.
Well, and I feel like when you've been able to navigate through something that was so tough and like go through the darkest point in your life and see that light at the end of the tunnel, I know for me, if I can help somebody else who's going through that as well, as it's like even just the simple reminder of like there is a light at the end of the tunnel, like it does
Mhm.
get better. And for me, in some of my healing, being able to work through certain things has made working through other things, it almost like expedites it because it's like, okay, this was the hardest thing I've ever had to overcome, or this is the hardest thing I've ever had to process and work through. So if I can make it through that, I already have like a general navigation of how to get through these other things. Like
Mhm.
it makes it to where you're like, "Oh, I can get through this. I can push through this. This is a little bit easier." You kind of get like a little bit of a system going. What do you, so I was gonna say too, because you mentioned talking to some of the wives and partners of ones who are in the system. It does kind of feel like it's so interesting. You kind of build like this camaraderie between each other,
Mhm.
and they have their own camaraderie in there, and you're like sending messages, and then you get to know people, and you
Yeah.
you almost have like this people who can't relate might not understand this, but it's almost like this extended family.
Yeah. Because
But
you're spending a lot of time with them. Like you're
yeah.
waiting for hours in line to go see your loved one, and they're your link. Like we just had with the tsunami thing, there
Mm,
was a couple of people, and because we're in California, right? And I was just like, hey, do y'all know what they're doing?
yeah.
Is everybody and like some of the moms were freaking out, and I was like, dude, they're good. They're good. When my husband was in West Texas, though, and they had tornadoes going through, that was really freaky.
That'd be
So
terrible.
it does help, like to have those numbers, especially during COVID. It was really tough.
Yeah.
And I mean, I want to actually do like something on this too one day because it's like people don't understand. Like it's like the community, as you kind of mentioned, when he was getting transferred to back to California. So we fought for like how many years was it? I think 9 years to
Oh,
try to get
wow.
him back to California. That's a whole story. But he couldn't talk to me, and I get a call from I got a text message from an unknown number, right? And they're like, "Hey, sorry, I my boyfriend just told me to tell you that your husband's headed to California." And it was like, that's our mechanism to talk because they
Yeah.
can't have comms and stuff like that. And you're just like, nobody knows what it feels like to have a loved one who you're like, we have no control over anything that's going on. We
Yeah.
don't know if when they get COVID, if they're going to go to the hospital. Like we won't be told anything.
Yeah.
And so it's like the way that it works, which it works, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like I totally, it's funny when you said I got a text message from an unknown number. I'm like, oh yes, I've gotten those text messages before.
Yeah.
Like I remember when my brother was in prison and it was like so and so's girlfriend was texting me to walk me through how to log in the system to put money on his books, and then I was helping and you just get like
Yes.
this whole
Yeah.
communication network going on.
Yeah. Totally.
Um, what do you, I think that there's a huge missed opportunity when it comes to inmates integrating back into like day-to-day society. I feel
Mhm.
like they can only do so much while they're in prison of helping set them up for success.
Yeah.
As far as like getting degrees and helping so that they'll have more options when it comes to getting a job when they get out. But sometimes there's like my uncle, when he was released, and I never thought about this until he was released, but from when he was went in to when he was released was like the hugest technology shift. Like we went from our T9 phones to touchscreen, and there was like MySpace and Facebook and Instagram,
Yeah.
and there's this whole new lingo and shortcuts, and websites are different, and COVID has happened. And so now we have Instacart, and like none of this existed when he went in. And I just, you never think of it, but it was just like such a learning curve for him. And so, like, when it comes to day to day, and that's just a small example, but like, have you guys kind of set up a plan for when your husband is released of like what the game plan is going to be?
So I'm sure our kids will teach him all the technology because I've already thought about that. I'm like, he's not even going to know how to drive a car. Like, he's going to be like, what?
Push
He'll just
start.
be like, I don't know how to do this.
Yeah.
Yeah, because when he got arrested, like, this is when the iPhones were coming out, right? So I think
Mhm.
we had iPhones, but it was like they
Look
weren't
around.
where they are now,
Yeah.
right? And so, actually, one of my biggest things with the whole reintegration is what I really think they need to let more people on home arrest because it's like it costs $6,000 I think a year to have someone on home arrest, and it's like almost 50,000 to keep them incarcerated. And I have a hard time believing it's only 50,000. And
Yeah.
I'm like, so you don't have enough money in the prison system right now. So it's like they need to just let more people be on home confinement. That's my opinion. And then they can be contributing to their families and they can learn those things
Hmm.
because they can also potentially get jobs. I frankly think that they need to be like we're having in California a lot of problems getting people to work, like food or whatever. It's like let people who are able bodied do this and
Yeah.
then they can contribute and allow them to have money, send money home. Like they all want to help their families. Like they don't like they're in the prime of their life
Hmm.
and you're not giving them the opportunity to contribute. You're saying when you come out at 80, now go get a job. Like and
Yeah.
you haven't worked for decades. Oh, and you have a ton of health issues because you haven't been able to get medical care. So
Hmm.
honestly, it would release their problem if they allowed more of them to come home. But I do believe in, as you kind of mentioned, so my husband's he just got accepted into an MBA program, which is something that we have to fund. But it'd be an awesome opportunity to get more of education opportunities into those like into the facilities where
Hmm.
maybe even people could donate, like to get someone the college funds because I know a lot of them don't have family, right, that help.
Yeah.
But education is like one of the number one predictors of them not coming back because it'll
Hmm.
give them a better tool and it makes them just feel like it
Have
makes people
purpose.
feel, yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. And like, I want to do more with my life. I want to use it, whatever. They could also, I mean, where my husband's at, they have something called Unicore, and it's where they actually
Have a
like I'm
job.
gonna say this all wrong. Yeah, but it's more normal, but they make like a quarter day,
Yeah.
right? It's like
Yeah.
I don't even know how that's legal, but it is.
Yeah.
Anyways, but it's like there's opportunity where they could be allowing, in my opinion, them to do production type jobs or
Hmm.
something so that they could be more useful and be contributing to society. And
Yeah.
then they're learning that stuff too, right? Because it's
Yeah.
like they should be giving them, they should allow tablets. Like federal doesn't allow a lot of that stuff, but some of the state allow tablets. So they do have some electronic stuff. And
Yeah.
then they have more communication with their family, which is good. But you're hitting the nail on the head is that they need to be able to type, like, right, you
Yeah.
need to be able to have the certain skill sets in the IT field if you want to make it in the world today.
Yeah.
And so I would highly encourage them to look at, like, in their education department allowing those opportunities where they're utilizing more I mean, it's the BOP. They're not going to have like state of the art. I get it.
Yeah.
But like it could be donated from schools or something where they're getting older stuff
Hmm.
so that they can at least practice and get more
Well,
um
just like preparing them for
yeah.
life, because it's the fact of the matter is they're gonna have to work with these things when they get out.
Hmm.
And they already have so much stacked against them. Like, let's not have a technology learning curve or any other type of learning curve be the thing that limits them.
Yeah.
Um, like for someone who has a record to get a job is sadly so hard in certain
Hmm.
things that don't even apply to what they went in for.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't know, it's such a bummer. And I remember, I think part of like way back when I was younger in school, part of what added to that level of shame was I remember somehow in class, the topic came up of how inmates, um, they were talking about, oh yeah, they can buy shoes, just like regular shoes and Nikes, and they can buy TVs, and they shouldn't have any of those things. And I remember thinking, like, I can understand how you would think that because they did something, they broke the law, and they're serving time. And so it is somewhat of a punishment, but they're also humans. Like,
Hmm.
you think that this is a privilege, and yeah, it is a little bit of a privilege, but it's like such a small scale when it comes to it's not like they're
Being
walking
removed
around.
from society.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And
Yeah.
everything else that they're limited on, like the gross food and the lack, like you mentioned, like the lack of medical care. Like, I can't tell
Hmm.
you how many inmates have come out with no teeth because the dental care there is like, well, do you want to pull it?
Hmm. Absolutely. And I think the other thing to think about, and see, this is what people don't realize. They're like, they shouldn't have anything, but you're like, what with your kids? Because this is how I use the analogy is a lot of times with what they do in the prison system is so completely contrary to how you would parent your kids. Like
Hmm.
you don't punish all your kids when one person does something wrong.
Hmm.
You don't like withhold food, being able to purchase food when one person did wrong to them all. Like it's just you don't do corporate punishment typically with parenting, right? It doesn't
Yeah.
it doesn't work well. And if
Yeah.
you don't keep people occupied, typically you see this with kids. They get bored and they get into trouble. It's like if
Hmm.
you allow them to be productive and to be doing something like purposeful, they're
Hmm.
going to be a lot less likely to get into trouble too. And
Yep.
like we had it where it's like, you know, when they have a family member die, they don't get to go home and say bye.
Hmm.
Like people don't realize like everything that they have to deal with. They just see really like the hard, well, they did it and they need to be in there. And I always think, I really believe prosecutors, if they have not, and need to spend a day in prison to understand what it is that they're doing when they tell someone to go to jail for like decades.
Yeah.
Because I don't think people understand, first of all. And I understand like society, there's people that just like hate and they're like, you're just done. You should be written off. But
Hmm.
it's like, there's so many people that are in there who change
Hmm.
and who want to make a difference. And they actually don't need to be in there anymore. Like,
Hmm.
let them go home. Like,
Yeah,
don't sit there and like waste everybody's time. Like, we have one
exactly.
life to live. If they are fixed, consider letting them go home. Do home confinement. Like don't make
Yeah.
people be in this environment if it's not necessary anymore.
Hmm. Yeah.
That's my opinion.
I on the topic of like when they lose a loved one, my sister, so I'm the oldest of my sisters.
Hmm.
But my sister, she was in prison serving a sentence, and while she was in, her oldest daughter was killed in a bus crash. And we
Gosh.
had to get approval from the chaplain to tell
Hmm.
her, and that took days. And then
Hmm.
to tell her we had to go, and one of my sisters wasn't approved on the list yet, so then we had to get her approved. And so by the time we got to tell her, it had been, I think, 2 or 3 days since it had
Hmm.
happened. And having to tell her through a little phone and a TV screen was the worst thing ever. And like, I wouldn't wish that on a single person to find out that your daughter was killed in a bus crash and you can't do anything about it. And she couldn't go to the service. She like the only comfort she had were other inmates who didn't know her daughter. And I'm glad that she had somebody. She had people who were gathering around her. But like in a moment like that, you want to be around your family.
Right. And you just want to hug sometimes.
Exactly. And it
And you
was
can't touch anybody.
no, and it was so hard to not be able to give her a hug
Yeah.
in that moment. And I could just like feel her heart breaking.
Yeah.
And um and within that same year, we have different moms, we have the same dad, but within that same year, her mom died of an
Mm.
overdose. And so it's just like one thing after another. And so that was one of those situations where like I can understand why she would resort to drugs, which she did.
Mhm.
And at the same time, it's like she didn't have any type of, I don't know, she just didn't have like the system to comfort her through
Yeah.
those things. To, I mean, they didn't offer any type of counseling. They didn't offer any type of grief support at all for her. The only support that she had were inmates like saying we're here for
Yeah.
you and us on the phone and through letters trying to rally for her. And it's like, yeah, I don't know. I feel like there are a lot of ways where our system is set up the way that it is for a reason and it serves the community. And I think there are a lot of ways that it could be better.
Yeah. And
But
that's where I think nonprofits too can help in
mhm.
those areas. Cause I'll tell you a couple just really fast experiences with the whole death thing in prison. So I remember this guy that my husband was friends with. He found out his mom died and he ended up committing suicide. I mean, he was just like wrecked in there. And it's like, there, as you kind of said, there's zero compassion for the most part. Like when my husband's dad died, the mortuary called the prison for days, and they wouldn't do anything. They wouldn't tell him. They didn't tell him for days. The chaplain didn't tell him. And they're
Oh,
supposed to be on 24-hour notice.
yeah.
And so, and then when he got told, like, because he knew the chaplain hated him.
Hmm.
And so he couldn't be like, when you know someone hates you, you just like remove yourself, right?
Yeah.
So the chaplain hated him. He couldn't really go and to church with him. And the chaplain wanted to see him. And he's like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? And so, long story short, kind of yelled at him and basically was like, your dad's dead. And my husband was
That's how
like,
he told him.
yeah, and he got to pick up the phone and he called me and he was like so shaking because I was like, oh my gosh, I was at work and I'm like, why does he keep calling me? He knows I'm at work. So I answered it and I was like, oh no, something's wrong. And he was like, never have the chaplain tell me something if something serious happens.
Yeah.
And he was just like, I'm just so glad it wasn't you or the kids or, whatever. And it was just like so like that's where I'm saying is like people don't understand like all these people try to enhance your punishment all the
Hmm.
time. And it's really hard
Hmm.
because you want people to improve. And it's like if you throw rocks at them all the time, like does that make people usually improve?
No.
Like, no, that doesn't usually bring out a blossom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just reiterates this feeling of isolation that they've felt from the beginning of,
Yeah.
I mean, I think what gets a lot of people into the system is that they feel like there's nobody there who's going to have their back, and so they have to do it themselves and they resort to whatever means they have. And a situation like that just reiterates that feeling.
Yeah.
But I did want to touch on too a project that you're working on. You mentioned was is the Family Restoration Foundation. Can you tell
Mm-hmm.
me a little bit more about that and what that's going to be?
Yeah, totally. So it's a nonprofit that we just are getting started. And we're really excited because what we want to use it to do is help restore family bonds who have been involved in the judicial system or in the correctional system. Because just from our experience, like everything kind of keeps you apart. Like there's moms that don't want to bring their kids there because they don't want to see their dads, or vice versa, right? It could be moms or whatnot. And so we want to provide like some mental health and healing type trauma healing for
Mhm.
kids and the family members, because I think you kind of hit the nail on the head. It's like they don't have the support. Like there's not a lot of people that understand what it feels like to deal with the level of shame and when you didn't even do it,
Mhm.
right? Like you didn't do it. And we also want to help. It's really hard for family members to maintain that bond with their children and their spouses or significant others. And I mean, it's just better for society. Like statistically, it shows if they have a bond with their family members, then they're going to have less likelihood of going back in.
Mhm.
The children who have already like a lot of challenges with mental health and just stigma, they actually statistically show that they're better off when they have a relationship. When it was pre-existing, it shows that they have a better relation when they have a better relationship with their parent who's incarcerated, that they have a better opportunity to not become one of the negative statistics.
Mhm.
And so it's like everything, it's really hard. It's just really hard. Like the visiting is not set up to facilitate like a nice family visit all the time. And I understand that they're the government. They have a job to do, and it's not
Mhm.
necessarily like mending people's hearts. And so that's where I see nonprofits like ours could potentially help with mending the heart. So we want to do like, we have these devotionals that we have for like a father and a child and stuff, because that they could do separately but yet together and have like discussion questions, just things that we know that we did that
Mhm.
maybe can help other families. So
I love that. I think that's so great. I think that that is definitely something that the world needs right now. Um,
mhm,
and I feel like I'm a broken record at this point, but I just think like if I had something like this growing up,
mhm,
I feel like I'm very fortunate that I had people to help me be on the right track, but I have siblings where we have one parent in common and their story is completely different than mine. And so
yeah,
like if they had the resources that you're trying to create and even just the relationships and the connections that you're creating with people, it might have been a different story. And I think that's so
yeah,
beautiful that that's something you're trying to create for others.
absolutely.
So one question that I like to ask everybody is
Mhm,
with everything that you've gone through and how you have learned to not just cope with this situation, but I feel like you're kind of thriving a little bit and finding your purpose through all of it. Um,
mhm.
what's some advice that you would give to somebody who might be going through the same thing?
First of all, don't talk to the media. Like, don't talk publicly at all, because until you've healed, you don't want to use your words to hurt.
Mhm.
And I'm so grateful I never did, because I was really angry. And all those feelings that you have, they're valid. And you deserve to be heard. You just want to do it in a way that is going to be helpful and healthy and not hurting. And I guess that's the one thing that came off my top of my head, but it would also be just find that one person who believes in you. You
Mhm.
just need one person who says, you got this, you can do it. I mean, I had like one, you know, and it's like that will help get you through those things. And you got to just keep it in your face, like, I can do this. Like, write it on a piece of paper and read it every day, proclaim it over yourself,
Mhm.
because you got to be your champion. No one is going to fight harder for you than yourself. So
Mhm.
you got to fight for you sometimes.
I love that. And I love what you said about basically like sorting out your emotions first. I think that's so important. And I'm a huge advocate for that of allowing yourself to feel all of the emotions, like, and that you said that those emotions are okay, but work through them before you react to things is so
Before
huge.
you say something like publicly to everybody. And yeah.
Yeah, that's so big. Well, Kristin, thank you so much for
Yeah.
being on here and sharing your story. And I love what you're doing. And
Thank you.
I just think it's so beautiful.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. And thank you for what you're doing too. This is great.
Thanks. Hey, thanks for listening to this episode. If you liked what you heard, please remember to subscribe and go leave a review on Apple Podcast. It helps me know what you want to hear and who I should have as a guest next. Thanks again, and until next time, keep living the life of a lotus.